Good morning to all of you watching today's episode of Selling That House. My name is Bill. I am your host for today's episode. And for those of you who may have watched previous episodes of Selling That House, you already know this, and that is we typically bring onto the episode into the conversation real estate brokers, real estate professionals who share their stories, their advice, tips of how they are able to sell that house efficiently, quickly for their clients. Well, everyone, in today's episode, I'm surprising you because I'm bringing on a guest who is not a real estate broker, not a real estate professional. However, given what she does, given the businesses that she operates and runs, it has everything to do with selling that house. Now, here's the twist. It has everything to do with selling that house when a couple, a household, is looking at their new individual chapters. Notice how I just teased you there as to, well, what is she all about? What is she going to talk about? Well, rather than me tease you more, let's bring her into the room. Catherine, welcome to today's episode. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Bill. I appreciate it. And for the audience, I didn't know that I had such a special coveted spot in selling that house where I was the
Well,
first non real
non,
estate professional in as far as not being an agent or a broker that was going to speak with you today. So I'm super excited. I'm Catherine
absolutely.
Brukalo. I am a Chicago girl. I am a Polish American, so I'm fluent in both Polish and English. I'm a part of Bill's network in the fact that I am an Illinois licensed attorney and I have been for 17 years. I
Wow.
work predominantly on family law cases. So for the next chapter in the lives that Bill talked about, we are, and here's the kicker, boom, talking
Yep.
about folks who are getting a divorce and
Yep.
moving on with the next chapter of their life without their former spouse. I am also a mindset and empowerment coach, and I work with employers and their employees. I put on live high level workshops for them and work one on one. And a lot of my clients are women who are high achieving Gen X women who are sandwiched between school age kids and aging adult parents. And we work with them on being able to prioritize their time in a way that's going to allow them to live a life that they love with less anxiety and more calm.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm with you right there. We are all in a sandwich generation where we're taking care of little growny ones and the grown ones that sometimes are little kids.
It comes full circle sometimes, right? Like the
Yep.
memes we see online, but
Yeah.
it is a sometimes unique place to be in, and those challenges may also come at a time when folks are thinking about divorce, getting a divorce, dealing with these matters either during or after divorce when they may be co-parenting. I appreciate that not all of my clients are parents of minor kids. Some have adult kids, some don't have kids. I've been seeing a lot um, in the recent couple of years. I want to say COVID and on, the
Mhm.
phenomenon that they call gray divorces. So, folks who are either nearing retirement or at the age of retirement getting divorced. I
Yeah.
think perhaps a lot of that had to do with dealing with one another in person during lockdown. And maybe some trends or some changes that were occurring and disrupting their usual kind of way of life as it had been before COVID hit.
Right.
So there's a lot of learning curves that happen for everyone. But I know that I'm here in the guise of selling this house. So Bill, I'm sure you have some questions for me that have to do with
Yeah.
your clients as far as their house or sale of their house is concerned.
So my first question, just to warm you up, Not that you really need it, because I know you kind of hit it out of the park as soon as you bust out of the gate, Catherine. But my first question to get you going is, what are the top 5 questions that you are there to help the couple going their separate ways? What are you there to help them ask and answer? The top 5 questions.
Well, it's interesting that you should say top 5. And I know that we're very focused on these chunks of
Yeah.
information. We've got 3 of this and 5 of this and 10 of this and whatnot. So I want to start with saying, in that kind of a situation, even if we are considering a couple that is going to amicably divorce, correct? In the
Right.
state of Illinois, as an attorney, I represent one of that
Right.
couple. Okay.
Right.
Now, does that mean that at some point I don't meet with both parties? Usually, if there is a party that comes to me, we draw up an agreement or agreements. And the reason I say agreements is that if they have minor children, we've got one agreement having to do with the marital estate and one agreement having to do with the parenting and the allocation of responsibility as it comes to parenting. Okay, including parenting time, decision making, all those good things. So they would come, we would talk about what it is that's going on, what do you want. We would draw together these documents, and the other side, so the other party, the person who I'm not representing, right? So if I represent spouse number 1, this would be spouse number 2, gets to review those documents, gets to have an attorney of their choice review those documents or that document, and then perhaps they sign. Does it happen that spouse number 2, who I do not represent,
Right.
doesn't have an attorney or chooses not to have an attorney? Of
Sure.
course.
Yeah.
And then I want to make sure that it is abundantly clear to spouse number 2 that I do not represent spouse number 2. They
Yeah.
sign paperwork at my office that says I have been informed, I have waived this, all of the things. Okay, we don't want anyone coming back later and saying, oh, well, I didn't know, I was never told. Yes, all of those things happened. You have your right to your own attorney. You can choose not to exercise that, because
Yeah.
I cannot look out for the interest of spouse A and spouse B. I understand that in the world of real estate, we have certain instances of double representation, as far as one agent or broker can represent the buyer and the seller, and there's
Yeah.
certain documentation that's signed as far as them understanding what that means for them, not for attorneys.
Okay.
You can sign the things that say, we've told you we're not your attorney,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make us your attorney.
Got
We
it.
do not represent both sides.
Okay.
And as far as thinking about, the top 5 things, I can kind of say those, but what I like to do is I like to talk to my clients about what are their goals. What
Important.
is it that they want to achieve?
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got folks who may be in a bad headspace, or they may be struggling with something right now that isn't necessarily kind of a long term or a chronic struggle, and they may look outside of themselves or their situation. You've heard it before. Oh, hey, my neighbor got this kind of a mortgage rate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
frankly, we hear the same thing. Oh, well, my friend told me this. And if my friend can get so and so in child support and so this, and right now I'm angry at my spouse, then maybe this is for me.
Right.
Well, but is it for you? Like,
Yeah.
is that what you want? Like,
Right.
what do you want?
Great question.
And
Yeah.
we can go from there.
Yeah.
And then we can go through, the different elements of, what do you have? What's going to happen to it? What gets divided? What doesn't get divided? How can we tell? Do you have minor kids? Who's taking care of the kids? How is that going to work? Right? Am I going to get child support? Can I try to get maintenance, which is what used to be called alimony in Illinois? Because, folks, this is important. Listen to this. I'm going to say it twice. Nobody automatically gets alimony in the state of Illinois.
There you go.
Okay, now it's called maintenance. So nobody automatically gets maintenance in the state of Illinois.
Okay.
Once it is either agreed between the parties or found by a court of law that you are able to qualify and get maintenance, then there are calculations in the statute that are going to talk about what you get based on the amounts of money, et cetera, that everybody's earning. But we're not going into it right away saying, oh, my spouse, so not the spouse, let's say I represent spouse number 2, has worked, et cetera,
Right.
and has earned and has retirement savings and all these things, and I have been home, with the kids, et cetera. So therefore, I get not automatic in the state of Illinois.
Okay, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Not automatically. All right.
So if there's, some other things, we may consider what the property is. We may work out, if you are indicating that you have property that is premarital, which you may have purchased or owned or been the owner of before you got married, there may be certain actions that may be taken during the course of marriage that may change that property into marital property. So really, you want to figure out, do I really want this? What do I want? You want to figure out what are the most important things to you, because which is the hill you're going to die on. Folks, the more you can agree on, if it isn't a completely uncontested matter, the quicker it's going to go and the less expensive it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're going to dig your heels down every time, if you're going to file a motion, stand up before the court, have a hearing, collect evidence, have arguments, all of those things take time.
Yeah.
Family law attorneys typically will collect a retainer up front and charge on an hourly basis, in addition to charging costs for things such as court costs, expert depositions, the deposition transcripts, and other matters such as this. So as you can imagine, if you're having your attorney take time to figure out, the issue, draft something about the issue that's going to ask the court, hey, this is what my client spouse 1 wants because of these reasons, show up in court, present it. The court's going to give the other spouse time to answer, or their attorney to answer. Okay. You're going to engage in getting whatever documents or evidence is necessary. And some of that may include something like, forensic accountants, for example, if we're talking about, hey, I gave this money and this isn't in this account and she has this account on the side, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a hearing and you've got a court reporter at the hearing, and here we are months later and dollars later, and we may or may not really be a lot further than where we were. So I like folks to think about, what do I want and what are the most important things that I'm going to fight for?
Okay. Got it.
There will be a requirement for child support.
Okay.
Child support will be ordered. How much child support is going to depend on factors according to the statute. Okay. So that's a bit different from spousal maintenance.
Okay.
Right. But again, depending on these factors and everybody's earnings and jobs and the numbers of overnights that each parent has with the kid, where are we going to argue? Are we going to take our time filing motions, paying our attorneys, paying costs, paying experts to talk about why the kids need to be home at 7 or 7:15 in the evening versus 7:30 or 7:45? Or do we have bigger fish to fry?
Yeah, bigger issue.
I understand everyone's angry. I understand that this is a very emotional time. And some of my work as a mindset coach really does assist when I help my clients work on these things. However, again, that is between, for example, when we are talking about situations where there are minor children with the spouses, folks, as long as you and your kids are alive, you are going to be the parents of those kids.
True.
You are never done with that parent until you're done with that parent.
Yeah.
Might they be estranged? Might they not show up to your, at some point, adult kid's wedding? Sure, maybe. I don't know. Does it make them any less of that kid's parent? Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I invite folks to think about also the big picture, and I invite folks to come with the questions they have. Because frankly, one person's question, and I work with a lot of dual language or even Polish language clients who are more accustomed to the laws or traditions in the old country, where their questions may be different than folks who are, first, second generation Gen Xers here in the US, et cetera, or the points that are important to them may be different, or certain matters may need to be re-explained as the case or cases progress than others. And I'm here to help you through the legal process.
Yeah.
So I want the questions to be the questions that are important to you. I want you to feel comfortable with me or whatever attorney you're working with, because it's important for you to have that trust and that relationship with your attorney so that you and your attorney believe and can move you forward in a manner that is going to be the best for you and it's going to keep your best interests at heart. A
Yeah.
lot of times, clients or potential clients may not really, quote, like, end quote, what I have to propose,
Hmm.
because I would prefer to say it like it is than promise, an apple on a pear tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Or promise an outcome that doesn't meet with their goals, which is your first question.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we like to
Is
figure that out.
is the asset of real estate easier to deal with in a divorce as opposed to other assets? Can you speak to that?
It depends.
Okay.
And there's a lot of factors that may go into that because, as I talked about before, we may have premarital property
Right.
and marital property. There may be couples where one of the spouses had purchased the house before the marriage, but then the couple moved into the house and they used marital monies to pay the mortgage and to pay the
Maintain it.
utilities and to
Yeah.
upkeep the house.
Right.
And you may have a situation where one of the spouses is saying, no, this house is mine. It's not yours because I bought it and I'm the only one on the deed.
Right.
So what?
Yeah.
You know, it may not be that simple. There
Yeah.
may be situations where there is a mortgage, you have a short term marriage, you've got a higher mortgage, you don't have as much equity, there's more debt. You guys, you got to split the debt too. We're
Yeah.
not just splitting assets here when we're talking about marriages, we're splitting debt as
Right.
well.
Right
Okay.
on. Right on.
So, you know, I think it's never a black and white situation where you're saying, oh, I have this 3-bedroom house and it's going to be a super simple case because all we got to do is sell the house. And it's
Right.
like, okay, but what is your goal?
Right.
Right?
Sure.
And what are your assets and what are your liabilities? And
Sure.
where are we going with this?
Sure.
And I may slightly foresee a question that may be coming. And I'm going to say, you may have, and just going back to what I said previously about emotion and some of these things that are happening, if you have minor kids, you may say, oh, look, I really want to keep this house because my kids go to school in this district. My kids have friends in this district. I
Exactly.
hear that a lot.
Right.
But that's
I
where
do
you
too.
come in, Bill,
Yeah. I do.
because the question is, but can you afford to keep
Bingo.
this house?
Bingo.
And on many levels, can you afford to keep this house for the money?
Yeah.
Are you able to pay the mortgage, pay the bills, refinance the home in your name? Do you have the credit history? All those things. Second of all, are you able to keep this house for the well-being? I don't know
Right.
what your relationship was like. What if it was so awful, and you went through all these things that caused you to get everything from a order of protection to a divorce? Do you really want to be walking around this property, thinking, oh yeah, that's the kitchen counter where someone did XYZ before I called the cops? Like,
Yeah.
I ask and I work with my clients to figure these things out.
Yeah.
Because to say, oh, it would just be easier if we stayed here and our kids went to the same school isn't the same as, are you putting yourself and your kids at a disadvantage because now, you cannot afford this, and whatever you're making, your income to debt ratio is such that, I don't know, you're living on a shoestring budget or going to the pantry to get your kids mac and cheese.
Right.
Like, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
Yourself and some of your other guests can absolutely help these folks get into a property, even if it's a rental, in the same school district so the kids can go to school with their friends without you having to put yourself in financial peril.
Right. Right. And it's all about moving to that next chapter with ease and less baggage, right?
And I like to think about it as as a whole, you
Well,
know,
yeah.
and I work with some folks who are financial planners. Work with people like you who are in the mortgage
Mm-hmm.
industry. I work with real estate agents, and you know, we want to figure out, and according to your goal and your plan, what can be done to help you. How can we figure this out
Right.
so it's best for you?
Right.
Without necessarily having these, you know, gut emotional, heart-wrenching emotional decisions being made in the moment out of, you know, fear or anger. Yes, you're gonna have fear, you're gonna have anger, you're gonna have disappointment, you're gonna cry, you're gonna go through all the emotions, and you're a human being.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely okay. You can go through all of them in my office. It's fine.
Yeah.
There isn't much that I haven't seen, okay?
Yeah.
But also then figure out, what is our goal? What do we want to do? How can we get you there?
Yeah. And with what you've described, it makes perfect sense to me, Catherine, as to why your counsel, the way you do it, allows you to also provide that service as a mindset and empowerment coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, as we wrap up our conversation today in this episode, for all of you watching us today, you can see how you can reach out to Catherine Brukalo. She shared with you her contact information. And by the way, no secret, no surprise. She's easy to find. Just Google search her. You'll see her everywhere. Just kidding, Catherine. Um, so as we wrap up today's conversation, I'm going to engage you in one last conversation point. It's what I call the true or false game.
Ooh.
Yes. And I guess from where I sit, I don't know if it's true or false.
Okay.
You're the one to know. So here goes. At the top of this conversation, you shared with everyone that's watching, myself as I listened to you, and I wasn't surprised by it, that more of these life events, separation and divorce, is the gray hair divorce, right? So my question, true or false, are more women, so therefore the female spouse, triggering that life event of separating and divorcing? Or is it men?
So is your question, like, in the experience where I described earlier, seeing that
Yes.
I myself have
Yes.
either clients or have potential clients reaching out as far as gray divorce, am I seeing more of those divorce petitions being filed by male partners or
Or
female partners?
correct.
I will tell you that in the, you know, COVID to present time where I've seen that uptick,
Okay.
I think that, if my recollection is correct,
Okay.
there is a slight male
Really?
prevalence. It
Really?
isn't extreme, like, I wouldn't call it, you know, like 80/20, but um I would definitely call it, like, close to 60/40.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised, but hey, you've answered my true or false question. Oh wow, that's surprising. For all of you who are watching, by the way, if you're surprised as well, like me, drop a comment into the social platform that you're watching this, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, or of course my YouTube channel. Um, Both Catherine and I will see your comment. And if there is a call to action that you're asking for from one of us, we'll certainly engage you. So, as we wrap up today's conversation, for those of you who need to start a conversation, benefit from the consult and experience from Catherine Brukalo, you certainly know how to reach her. Along the way, if you also need answers to those questions, working with Catherine as to, well, do I sell the house? Do I keep it? How do I go about doing that? And therefore, you may need financial solutions, your own financial solution, your own mortgage to get to that next chapter. It's real simple. Simply scan this QR code. I am ready, willing, and able to start a conversation with you, along with Catherine, to help you reach your goal. So, as we wrap up today, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with me and my audience, and perhaps your audience as well. I look forward to the next episode that we can bring you in, and maybe we'll talk about mindset empowerment strategies, because I know you share a lot of that online as well.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, audience. I appreciate it. It was my pleasure. I hope that you have learned something today, even if it is that a lot of men, or more men than you may have thought, are actually filing for divorces in the state of Illinois, that are at or above retirement age.
Yeah.
And in my true I am an attorney fashion, I am going to remind you that none of what Bill and I talked about today is legal advice that's going to pertain to your case, or a case that you're thinking about filing. And please do reach out to both of us for your legal and mortgage needs.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for all of you watching this episode. Until we see each other in the next one, have a good day.
Thank